Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We from Group of 6 will present the result of our material discussion. Before that, let me introduce myself and our members. The first is me, Alshadila, as moderator as well as presenter of the material. And the second is Yunita Nurfajriya as a material presenter. Next, we will explain the material about a practice-based exploration of technology and assessment for English language teaching. Introduction. In this chapter of the book, we take a practice-based look at how technology can be used in assessing English language teaching (ELT). We begin with a brief overview of the changes that have taken place in the area of assessment over the last 50 years. A common thread running through these changes in our striking proportion that over the last half-century we have developed and greater understanding of how we might help someone to learn a language, and these changes need to be reflected in the way we assess. Fundamentally, we hold the view that the ability to communicate and how do things with language should lie at the heart of language learning. We need to develop certain skill in learners, and this skill will help to make our language learners better communicator and user of the language. Therefore, the skill that we need to focus on assessing, some of these skills are global and associated with a general performance in using and working with the language, and some of them are quite specific. They all need to be assessed if we are to effectively evaluate a student's overall language ability. This is because our understanding of what assessment and how to judge effectively has also evolved. Change in our understanding of the nature of judgment cover topics such as how did the assessment, where it happened, who used the assessment, and when it happened. We understand that many different stakeholders might want to use the information graded from the assessment, even the purpose of judgment has changed. Judgment has a role to play in motivation, self-reflection, and feedback. Technology is another area that has indirect impact on language assessment. Technology can offer affordability that provide a new way of assessing. We can now assess and evaluate students in ways that were not available to use even 10 years ago. We can record our students interacting in group or even working on monologue or story. We can get our students to record podcasts and audio files. We can get them to develop their written work on blogs and wikis. There is an abundance of tools that can be used in assessment, and this expand the types of text assessment we can create, as well as offering a faster and easier way to distribute it. So the judgment has changed. This has changed because first, the skill and context of modern language courses have changed, and because what we understand about the nature of judgment has also changed. It has also changed because of impact of technology, and the affordability is over, but it's still not the full picture. There are other drivers that also affect the way we teach and learn language and the way we judge them. Many of these have their root in the change that are happening in mainstream education and not just the language of education. This chapter, in its two parts, the first present the key factor that have influenced the way judgment has changed its breakdown influences into four areas that in fact often closes. First, language teaching change. Second, a change in understand and our judgment. Third, the impact technology has had. And finally, other drivers of mainstream education who have also influenced our views of judgment. And the next is assessment. Assessment is a very broad term that can include formal exam and tests, but internal and good that are structured and built into the fabric of the academic year, as well as the kind of more informal assessment teacher make a part of their daily practice. We recognize that this and exam set both internally and externally by organizations like ACLES have changed in great ways over the last 50 years. However, most teachers do not say much in exam over by intuition. Science exams are generally set at an institutionally that level are run by external exam bodies. Next, terminology. Before we look at why assessment has changed, we want to cover some of the terminology associated with assessment. We deal with a number of terms like summative, formative, portfolios, flashback, peer evaluation, self-evaluation, and reflection. But before we start, it is worth just contextualizing where assessment sits in the learning cycle. Learning cycle. Show the learner cycle. We can see from this diagram that first we need to think about our learning objective and goal. We have already identified that what we expect to achieve and language, classroom, and via assessment has changed significantly over the last 50 years and continues to change. We need to create assessment that help use evaluate and understand whether our learning outcomes are being achieved. But we also recognize that the assessment itself may help us in achieving some of our goals, like, for example, better motivation, autonomy, or more collaboration amongst learners.
And the next is summative and formative assessment. Students, when receiving an assessment, usually give most of their attention to their score and almost negligent for the instructional comments given by for future improvement. Summative assessment often occur at the end of unit module on their entire course. The focus to be on a science and the idea is to evaluate how well the student have learned what has been present. Formative assessment take place during course modules or units. The focus is more on collecting data about student progress and using this data to help them improve. Literature often talk about the product and the process. When we provide formative feedback, we try to focus more on the process and help students to produce their draft or recording. Focusing on the product, provide feedback on the final result. What may be more important is that formative assessment and summative assessments align well and that what is judged summatively and the end of the course or unit has been supported by formative assessments during learning. And the next is Westback effect. The Westback or Back-West effect is the effect that a teaching and learning assessment will have. This impact can be fair widespread. Currently, assessment might have an effect on what the teacher teaches, what the student reveals, how motivated the student feels, what skill the student is focused on, and the assessments correctly reflect the skills student needs to be good language learners, then it's likely that any work student to do in a preparation for the assessment or as a part of assessment will have a positive impact on their learning. Good judgment, which reflect good practice in language learning, tend to have a positive feedback whether from a teaching perspective or what a teacher do in a preparation or as a part or assessment and professional learning. Next is a peer evaluation or self-evaluation. Davison and Leung 2009 offer a four-stage process to grade teacher in a classroom assessment. The first is a planning assessment. The second is gather information about student learning through assessment. The third is to make assessment about the performance. The last is a given proper feedback. Because the view of judgment has changed, the whole process in this has become much more inclusive. There is a considerable interest in the idea of students evaluating themselves and getting students to build a picture of their own learning. The main goal is to make students more independent learners and hopefully more motivated as well. This process are the core of the assessment because one of the main objectives has the assessment is to provide information that will assist students in their learning. And this is a historical review of ELT rating review. The literature of ELT publication over the past 50 years reveals a shift for grammar-focused tradition to real engagement with language in the real-world setting. Until the 1970s, general pedagogy for language teaching was based on a vocabulary learning list. The use of a grammar, reading comprehension, and short essay writing. The learning objective of many people are centered of mastering the structure of language. Relate text or comprehension questions that improve reading text and producing written answers. The essay's work tends to focus on the accuracy of answer in terms of correct grammar, spelling, and syntax. Over there is no requirement to show the real understanding of the text. Language is not really seen for a communication or usage perspective, but rather in learners exposed to language machines. Before the SIP more communicate approach the language learning, formal language exam had a very narrow focus. Reading judgment central comprehension, while writing is little more than overseeing the formula. No attention is applied to learning sub-skills such as skimming and scanning. For example, the process of writing and organizing the text and the planning was almost ignored. Portfolio assessment, idea and drafting and recording are virtually non-existent. Most writing tasks are graded in the same way as grammar. The assessment criteria are the correct use the language rather than application, content, meaning, and ideas. Interest is always in the product and not the process. What is a language portfolio? The basic idea of the portfolio is to provide a wider range of evidence of student language skill. The root of the idea may go back as far as the New World 1916. The portfolio offers students the opportunity to demonstrate they have studied and are experienced with the target language. This can include a wide range of language evidence that reflect a much broader range of skill. This may include tests, reading, written works, essay plan, feedback, and reflection. Norton and Whitberg, 1998, describe the portfolio as a system and selective collection of student work that has been assembled to demonstrate student motivation, academic growth, and achievement levels. The e-portfolio is one example of what can be achieved through the use of technology to assess students, and most of the teachers we talk to don't do this, but they start incorporating some portfolio ideas into work. Many teachers start with a simple introduction to blog, wiki, or electronic stationery as a starting point in introducing technology into the assessment, and then in the later stage introduce more ECT elements. The first is focused on technology voice trade, ELT assessment summary discussion, technology and assessment, quiz creation tool, assessment tool that can be default oral skill, and feedback, peer evaluation, and self-evaluation. And the last page is about conclusion. Testing and assessment has changed enormously over the last 50 years, and we believe that the most of the changes have been very positive. Technology has been playing judgment for a long time, but with the introduction of the internet from Web 2.0, technology and mobile technology now, the role technology can play is greater than ever. There will be a lot of teachers out there who use technology in assessment, but in general, it still has not happened. Most paper-based assessment and the use of ECT for assessment, just like the use of ECT for teaching, are still at a very experimental stage. Highlight the point, I have now used blogging as an assessment tool for over 100 students, but nothing a blog has ever done before as a part of their assessment. Technology is often entertaining teaching because it changes so fast. It is constantly evolving, and it is almost impossible to teach and learn with this change. Try not to worry about this. Choose the technology that fits your assessment criteria and that will explain your assessment best, and not worry if they are the latest thing or not. Our view is that ECT can offer great affordability for assessment, and we encourage you to take advantage of it. And in doing so, hopefully expand your best. Try informal assessment with your class and get a lot of feedback from your student. Remember, most teachers tend to introduce it step by step. You will definitely change and custom your judgment as you learn more from using them. Most of the teachers we spoke to say their students were very supportive. It will be a step-by-step process, but not that you and your teacher will find very rewarding.
Thanks for your attention. Let's ask and discuss together. Sorry if there are mistakes and word or pronunciation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.